Welcome to the No Streetlights podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Tim. We'll be engaging in stimulating conversations every week.
We want to encourage societal growth towards kindness through understanding.
These conversations and the associated language can be triggering.
Listen at your own discretion.
But please reach out if we need to be doing something better.
So, let's take a breath, relax, and be welcome. Melissa, welcome back.
Hello. Great to be back. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I've been doing pretty well. Had my anniversary recently. Got to go and travel with the wife. And I'm about to go and have our holiday season, go spend it with some families.
Sweet.
It's been phenomenal. Aaron?
About the same for me. Our anniversaries, ceremonial anniversaries, are a little over a week apart. So we went up to the Shenandoahs and camped out, and we were excessively cold. But we had a couple dogs to lay on us in the tent, so that was nice.
Cool.
Yeah, my back hurts today, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to strengthen my body for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm incredibly exhausted today, and I am grateful for the opportunity to rest tomorrow.
I am cramping today and grateful for the opportunity to just sit here and talk to you guys and then chill out. We're all on the same kind of mellow self-care page, it sounds like.
I think so.
I might even hang my hammock in the garage after this.
Oh.
A nap sounds
Perfect. That sounds great.
Our first episode with Melissa was mostly an introduction and kind of, here's how you start processing your feelings in your body. Battle erotophobia. Melissa, if you want to summarize.
I don't remember exactly everything we talked about. We talked about erotophobia, about being in your body more, with your body more, and fighting the dissociative tendencies that most of us have, especially around sexuality. I remember those conversations. I think we talked about a lot of things.
Definitely.
I agree, but I think that was the overarching idea.
I know we also touched on things like boundaries and bodily autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy communications, consent, and the terrifying lack of sexual education in our country.
I think that was the overarching theme.
Yeah, we should probably talk about penises and vaginas more.
Yeah.
This time, we were hoping to invoke your coachness so that we could actually show people what it looks like to talk to a sexual educator about what we're going through.
Hey, I get to coach you guys?
Well, we had conversations with our wives.
Okay.
Tim and Brittany are very private people, so they'd like to keep what happens behind closed doors where they believe it belongs. My wife and I are open books, so we've decided that we're going to have a one-on-one educational session with you and me, Melissa.
Okay.
And Tim's going to be here as my buddy.
I'm here to support my friend and also gain knowledge.
I love it.
So this is my Tim talk.
Yes.
I love it. And good job on, getting clear with your partners on what the boundaries are. I love that. Cool. I'm excited.
Do you want to start with my childhood?
Where do we begin? What do you want to talk about? How's your internal, personal sexual life since we last talked?
There are still tons of things I have to work on and focus on and work at every single day. Since getting out, our job requires a very high amount of attention to detail, and we have to be on our toes, and that really spikes our cortisol levels. So a ton of military police and other military people who are taught to be hyper aware and worried all the time do suffer from low libido and ED either while they're in or once they get out. And that is something I went through that really jeopardized my relationship with my wife.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for listening.
Mm-hmm. That's a very common thing in a lot of ways. And I hear for veterans too. I understand that. Anyone with PTSD, most women live at that hyper aroused, not aroused as in like sexual arousal, but hyper vigilant state. which doesn't allow for the traditional arousal process to happen. If you're always on guard and alert, then the psyche doesn't know how to get into the place, which is parasympathetic mode. It doesn't easily get to parasympathetic mode to relax, which is what's required for the arousal process to start. And the arousal process, of course, is blood flow, heart rate increasing and temperature increasing and these kind of things. So yeah, common thing.
So during your counsel sessions, is that something that you're able to help people with? Like how beyond medication and everything, like it's most of that, like that's a mental battle, right?
I wouldn't call it a battle. It can be. It can be hard. But yeah, I absolutely do help people tone their parasympathetic nervous system. There's lots of things we can do to strengthen and tone the parasympathetic. The sympathetic part of your nervous system is the fight or flight. And we get stuck in that a lot. And our bodies need to return to the parasympathetic for rest and digest. So that's kind of where the beginning of coaching starts, is how do we access the parasympathetic more often and stay there longer when we're there. So there's tons of breathing exercises, just going for walks and movement. And there's all sorts of things. It depends on the person and their lifestyle and where we want to tweak and what they're open to changing. I'm a holistic sex educator, so we don't just talk about what's happening in the bedroom for people. It's the whole life. So yeah, parasympathetic activation is the long and the short of that.
One thing that helped me, and I don't know if this is correct or just what worked for me, is I just had to kind of step back from the mainstream amount of ridiculous stimulus of everything that's on Instagram and all the websites that start with X. And I had to start thinking about my wife whenever I was thinking about pleasure. I had to think, because my wife is drop dead gorgeous. Both of you have seen her and met her, but she's gorgeous. She's amazing. She has a banging body and I am all about it. But it was so hard for me to relax and be intimate with my wife because everything that had been shouted at my subconscious was like, you should sleep with as many people as you can. That's what means you're attractive. And once you've made an achievement, you don't have to make it again. So why would I keep sleeping with the same person? And I had to mush my brain around until I realized that's what I want for intimacy. I want to have this one person who understands every aspect of my being and my heart and my soul. But it took a very long time.
How long would you say that took, that process of redirecting? And first of all, like, this is super wise of you to take that undertaking of this is what I want, and then start to link your pleasure feelings with your wife and like, no, this is what I want, and train yourself in that way. That's really smart that you did that on your own.
Well, I had to. My wife kept telling me she was going to leave me.
Okay. Great.
So even the way our relationship started, she was like, I'm not looking for anything serious and you're a handsome fellow. What's up? And I was like, well, I'm looking for my wife. So, and now we're married. So I keep asking if she's sure and she keeps saying yes though. So that's good.
Yeah.
It's good to check in. How long do you think that took though, from like having the struggle into like reforming your nervous system?
We've been together for 3 years. And I think my wife has been happy for probably the last 6 months or a year. To be honest, to be completely honest, I have dealt with a lot of shame and stuff, and overcoming that shame is incredibly difficult when for the first 29 years of my life, I was told, if you have an STI or an STD, you're unclean and you're a menace and just a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot to work through.
Yeah, but I'm so grateful I had the opportunity to grow through that with my wife.
Yeah. Sounds great. So our habits form our neurology and form kind of a lot of who we are. And so I kind of want to go back a little bit to you saying that your early sexual life was about I don't remember exactly what you said, but banging the hottest chicks or whatever, chase it, like a certain kind of chase, a certain kind of way that sex was supposed to be done, air quotes here, that sex was supposed to be done. And that's how you formed yourself. Even just the way you thought about how to approach sexual interactions with people. There was a fascinating article, I'm just reminded right now, a little bit tangential, but it goes along. There's a fascinating article on NPR years ago about Mormon women. Their whole lives are so shamed, like sex is bad and wrong and dirty. If you do anything, you have to tell your bishop and all this stuff. And then they get married and they're supposed to like have this loving relationship and the sex is supposed to be a certain way. And the women can't stop being ashamed of what they're doing. The ring on their finger doesn't suddenly take away a lifetime of them being told that what they did was bad or wrong or dirty. So that reminds me of that. How we think about our sexuality forms how we approach it and how we develop our behaviors.
Is there a word for that?
Neuroplasticity is kind of like how our brain forms, and it's always forming with our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs and our habits. It's always forming and reforming. So we can change a lot of ourselves and a lot of our sexuality. People often think like, well, I am this way, so I'm just going to be stuck this way. I'm into these things. I only get off with porn. I only get off with a vibrator. I only do it this way. So this is how I have to do it. And people don't often realize that you can choose a lot about how you express your sexuality in the world.
One thing that I found interesting that you just mentioned was the pornography and the vibrators.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned them in the same sentence. So I'm kind of wondering why together? Are those two things connected or?
Yeah. Pornography is a common, I need to be careful. I don't think porn is wrong or bad. I think watching people have sex is healthy and normal, and it turns a lot of people on to be visual and to watch sexual things happen. So I think porn is great as a concept. There's obvious ethical problems with how it is executed largely in the world, and we can get around that. There's a lot of ethical websites and woman-owned websites and different things that work really well. But one of the problems with porn is the habitual patterns that are created. Again, I don't think it's bad to watch other people have sex, but most of the men that I work with that have habitual patterns with porn that are problematic, I don't like to call it addiction or anything. I call it problematic habituations, really.
That's fair. That removes some of the power from it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a habit that has become problematic in your life for whatever reason. One of the problems with it is that men will often become habituated. I say men because it's largely men, but people will often become habituated to a certain way of going about their sexual response cycle, which usually involves in front of a screen, sitting down with one hand or the other hand. And it's just like the exact same thing every time. It becomes a very deep groove, a well ingrained pattern. And then if they want something different, their body doesn't know how to respond. Something different could be a person, a human being that they're in front of, a warm body, and their body is like, yeah, we don't get erections here. We get erections in front of a screen while we're sitting down, while we're alone. And so we have to work and change this neurology to operate in a way you want, which might be to function with another person. Vibrators is a very similar but different problem for women. Again, I shouldn't just say problem because plenty of women have no problem with it. Like their vibrators work fine for them. They're good with it. That's what they want. That's how they get off. It's great. I'm not here to shame you. I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is wrong or bad. But a lot of people come to me and want something different. They want to be able to orgasm with a partner. They want to be able to have less stimulation and still react to it. And that's another thing that people, particularly women, think that they have to do it this way. I have to have a vibrator to come. Maybe that's the only way you have ever come, but that doesn't mean you have to have it to get there.
Yeah.
I lump them together because they're similar issues that I've worked with people in the past.
That makes sense. And in all honesty, humans, we are creatures of habits. We like to stay routine. We do the exact same thing. I wake up every morning at 6 a.m. I brush my teeth, I comb my hair and whatever else. And it's always the same thing every single time. That's how I've built my life. That's what my neuro patterns, that's how my brain is built. So if people are sitting there and that's the only time that they orgasm is if it's in front of their phone or utilizing a vibrator, yeah, when it comes down to that time, they're not going to be able to, their body's not going to be able to react in the way that they're wanting it to because their body is not used to that. It makes sense.
Often, yeah. And they think something's wrong with them. And they go to a doctor because that's what we do in our culture. We go to doctors, and doctors won't talk to you about all sorts of things. They will give you a pill. And it is increasingly common to be giving men in their 20s and 30s Viagra, which is mind-blowing. Of course, there's lots of factors: stress, anxiety, PTSD, medication. There's all sorts of other factors. If there's circulatory factors with obesity, maybe diabetes, different things like that. Like, there's a lot of factors that can create a low libido or ED, but it could be your habits. It could be that your nervous system doesn't know how to do the process anymore because you've trained it to do other things.
That's so interesting.
For me, it feels a lot like you use it, you lose it, where if you're only, as a military police officer, if you're only responding to scene if shots are fired, there's going to be a lot of problems you don't catch. In that way, I think it is turning down our sensitivity to react to natural stimulus. Mm-hmm. Instead of having to escalate to level 6 on our use of force, Tim, we can just talk to somebody.
Something that you mentioned, Aaron, that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit too. Going back to what you thought sex was, where you felt like you needed to basically just get as many bodies as you can. How did you develop that idea? Like, where did that come from?
I would just attribute that to societal influence. I mean, I perceived some neglect and some abuse in my childhood, so I was always reaching out for female comfort, and I thought that what makes a man is being appealing and being able to have wide conquest and all the things that mainstream media shoves down our throat in order to sell products. But now I'm realizing that less is more. If I can just wholly and completely partner with one person, dude, I could spend the rest of my life mastering that. It has taken a lot of effort. I have not done a great job, but I'm getting to a great place. We've talked about pornography a lot, and I will say some of my first memories have pornography involved. I found spicy magazines in various caches of adult men around me. I found adult media on DVD, and that really showed me that I need to be this powerful, sexy person who's taking charge and poking as many people as I can to show that I am worthy.
Yeah, that's common. There are plenty of people still practicing these beliefs.
And in the military, Tim, you've said a couple times that your workday is like a 16-hour day.
Yeah.
It's like a 14, 12, it's at least a 12-hour day for most military folk.
Yeah.
So I would get home exhausted, take a shower, shove something in my face, go to the gym for an hour, and how much time did I have before I had to be back to work?
Not a lot, like 5.
Enough to sleep?
Yeah.
So I had 5 minutes to nut. So I found the first video that had something I was interested in, and if your boy was in crunch time, he could be a minute man. What's up? I know how I finish.
We are pros at our own body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you've trained your brain at that point.
Yeah, I really did train my brain that you should have some unrealistic expectations, and sex is something that you should just check the box.
Yeah.
In my opinion, one of the worst things that porn does, maybe not one of the worst, one of the things that I see that porn does is it stops people from having their internal fantasy world. There's men of a certain, I've dated men of many generations and had a lot of sexual experiences with sex work of many generations. And there's like a definitive line, age-wise, the men above this line and older have a healthy, natural, normal internal fantasy landscape. And the men below this line really struggle. I think it's healthy for everybody to want boobs and think of boobs and imagine boobs and it's happening and have our body respond to that in a natural way and not have to seek it and see a screen. Like, of course, inspiration is fine. Of course, like seeing boobs is great. Of course. But can you get your body to respond and react and get turned on by your own fantasy, your own internal imagination? Older men can. Younger men often really struggle with that. They want to see something and they go find it on the internet.
So if I hadn't dove into self-reflection and realized I needed to be sexualizing my wife, are there any exercises or what guidance would you give me?
There's a lot of things. And I think you nailed it in a lot of ways. I would definitely have you start to marry when you're feeling aroused, when you're feeling sexual, when you're feeling horny, and then think about your wife and her hair and her skin and her smell and her lips and all the things and the plumpness and like femininity and woman and yum, and couple those more and more and more together. It's kind of making it sound like you weren't turned on by your wife, which is not true, right? Like you've always been turned on by her.
Correct.
And you've been neurologically trained to do different things. Like, well, great. I've had this one woman. Now what's next? What's next? Someone else, right? You've had to kind of block that pathway. Say, no, we're not going down that road anymore. What's here? What do I want to focus on? I think you did wonderfully refocusing your thoughts.
Is it really that easy? All you have to do is when you start feeling excited, you think about your partner?
It can be. There's infinite different scenarios and what people are dealing with.
But you found that works most of the time?
It definitely can be that easy to, number one, block the pathways that you no longer want to go down. So it comes up and you just say, no, I'm not going down that anymore. And then feed the pathways that you do want to go down in overly simplified terms. So that's really effective in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I think I might have to take quarrel with you, sir. Is that the right Shakespearean line?
I don't know.
You keep saying that we are able to change, that we are in charge. So you're saying that how I feel is my responsibility?
Yes, sir. Indeed.
Bullshit. Tim, stop recording.
That really is the crux of a lot of my work, is redirecting people back to themselves. You're not the victim of your circumstances. You can change your circumstances. You can change who you are. You can grow and adapt and evolve. And it's a beautiful thing. Not everything, not entirely. There's acceptance to this too. There's paradoxes and a double-edged sword here, but largely you're in control of who you are more than you know. And you're able to make changes at your desire with the right support and the right knowledge and know-how.
It sounds like as I sat with myself and did my introspection, retrospection, and meditations on, is this right? Is this wrong? I had to realize if I don't like one of my problematic habitual behaviors, I should not do that. And if I want to do something, I should do that thing.
Yep.
Okay. I'm glad you didn't hit any of my fingers with the ruler. So, Tim, what's next?
One thing that Aaron has been talking about lately, Melissa, and he's mentioned it now on a couple different episodes. Last time we spoke to you, you were talking about being more present in the moment and how that has fundamentally changed Aaron in his personal life and also in his sex life. One thing that I have not been able to do myself is figure out exactly how to keep myself present. So how could you coach somebody through that?
Would you say that you need to do more parasympathetic work? You're working 12 to 16 hours a day and not getting enough sleep and yada, yada. Do you need to work on just calming your body and mind first?
100,000%. Yes, I do.
That's where we have to go first. Because nothing's going to stick. If you're in fight or flight, if I'm yelling at you instructions, if I'm screaming at you, it's not going to stick. It's not going to change your life. And from what I understand in the military, there's lots of yelling and screaming.
That's the whole military.
That's all it is, yeah.
That's it.
I spent today listening to a bunch of people shooting guns and getting yelled at the entire time they were doing it.
Yeah, it's profound the amount of time you will need to spend doing alternate nostril breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, yoga, meditation, going for walks, calming your nervous system, because your body, mind, whole nervous system is so used to being in sympathetic mode. It takes monumental work. It's like someone with pretty severe PTSD. We have to do a lot of work often and regularly and consistently to get you into parasympathetic mode. Wow.
So I have a lot of work I'm going to have to do.
It's beautiful and simple. I'm not going to say easy work, but it's simple. Like alternate nostril breathing, what I just mentioned, is very basic. It's very simple. It's very easy to do. You just got to do it a lot. You got to do it every day, several times a day.
So do I do this?
Yeah.
I just plug in one.
I was just about to ask that.
You do. You do. It's super simple. You breathe in one side, and when you get to the top of the breath, your third eye, you breathe out the other side. So breathe in, switch, breathe out.
Viewers at home, she's literally just pressing the side of the nose, breathing into, as she stated, the third eye, just, the top of your sinus cavity whenever it kind of starts to diffuse back down the throat. And
breathing out the other side.
Yeah.
Oh.
You go back and forth. So you switch at the top, you keep breathing back and forth, and you do it 2 to 3 minutes until you feel a change.
If I breathe in through my left and breathe out through my right, do I then breathe in through my right and out through my left?
Correct.
Okay, so it is alternate.
You change at the top. You change when your lungs are full.
I look at it as like I'm doing lunges with my nostrils.
Yeah. And if you do this 2 to 3 minutes, you'll notice a difference.
Like we'll just feel more relaxed?
You'll calm.
Wow. Okay.
Do this before a job interview. Do this before a challenging conversation with your partner. Do this before bed. Do this right when you wake up. Do this if you're constipated. If you're constipated, oftentimes your body isn't in parasympathetic mode. It doesn't know how to do the rest and digest. It's too stressed to let go. There's all sorts of things that you can do this for. So you can look it up online too. There's videos on how to do it. Again, it's simple, but do it 10 times a day.
Wow. Okay. Definitely adding that into my daily routine.
Okay.
I've already mentioned how my daily routine has been so mapped out in my brain, but I'm going to go ahead and invoke my neuroplasticity here and add that in there.
You can train yourself to be calm and centered. So we don't want to be calm. We don't want to be in parasympathetic like all the time, every day. That's not the goal. You're going to go back to sympathetic, but you want to strengthen your ability to get to calm faster and more efficiently.
That is life-changing. So Shaquille, clip that. Tim, before I bring this back to orgasms, I would love to do like a hormone panel on you. And then I would love to take you off your anxiety medications and then do a hormone panel and see how high your cortisol is. And then I want to take you back to the farm and just spend a week with like no cell phone, just splitting firewood and sleeping in a tent, and then see what your cortisol is. Because right now, I'm sure you are well beyond the upper limits of normal.
Actually, that sounds phenomenal. That sounds like a great little retreat for us, Aaron.
Man, we got to get back to being present in our bodies. Otherwise, you're not going to have orgasms as great as mine.
Yeah, I'm not going to be going to different planets.
Space travel.
Yes. After that conversation, I said, cut. This has to be BS. I got to try it for myself. And I did. Holy cannoli. My life has changed so drastically.
What did you try for yourself? What did you do?
You told me to just be present in my body, focus on connecting with my partner, and just loving and accepting myself and the act and letting go of the shame and the blah, blah, blah. Because I know my wife loves my body. My wife always wants to be having sex with me because we feel so safe and connected and what have you. So I started just letting that be my reality instead of fighting it. It went from just feeling like vague pressure on my penis during sex to like feeling the grooves inside my wife. and feeling her expand and contract as I did things differently, and feeling the different bits of lubricity. And what if I do shorter, deeper strokes, or long, full, almost all the way out, almost all the way in, what I would call like a rail car on the track. But as I started doing that, my orgasms went from being the standard joke of like someone pushes you off a cliff and you land on a pillow. To like these crazy 45-second to a minute long ordeals of just feeling every single time that I contract and that she contracts, and that as it gets warmer, as the fluid exchange takes place. And during a couple of my orgasms, I've felt tears streaming down my face. Even last night, oh my God, once we stopped convulsing, my wife said, "Oh, we just made a baby," which is kind of a joke because I'm snipped. But there have been several orgasms we had where we're like, we just created life. There's no way this isn't a holy thing that we're doing right here. So thank you for telling me to be present in my body, because there's some pretty cool shit that takes place in and around my body.
There is more power than you know that you can maintain, that you know that you have. There's more power than you have experienced at this point in your life that you have access to.
So to the viewers, you are worthy of being loved, or your partner wouldn't love you. Your partner is turned on by you, or their parts wouldn't be either wet or hard. And if they're not, well, you have a mouth for a reason, my guy. Figure it out. Or like fix your thinking, work on yourself. See what's not working for you and don't go down that pathway. If you want to be intimate with your partner, when you think about intimacy, think about your partner and be there for yourself. Because if you're not there for you, you're not going to fucking experience it. So, Melissa, how do I get from crying to Mars? What's next?
Through crying, through all the expressions. So
just crying more?
You can definitely cry more.
Okay. I've been working on that, honestly.
You have permission.
It's all release. Orgasm, crying, screaming, it's all this energetic release, this experience that we're having. So open up to all of it. So as you're learning to expand into more energy in your body, you have to be able to practice the contraction. So you're expanding. You have to be able to know, like, okay, hold on, I need to breathe. I'm going to blow up. And not blow up in a way that, like, it's just like you lose the orgasm and it's like you're too much, or you've hurt yourself or whatever. You have to know when to stop and to come back and to breathe and to slow down and just, put your hand on your partner's chest and say, hold on, I just need a minute. And to get back in your body. Women, I don't know if this is true for men, largely women will very, very regularly disassociate. It gets intense, and then they just kind of go out of body. You'll hear that in this like high pitched screams, like they're not even in themselves. Mm-hmm. And I want women to practice more like, hey, hold on, like stop for a second and pull their energy back into their body, their awareness back into their body. So as you expand, you need to contract too. You need a balance of both things.
Okay. So episode 4, A Fitting Friend, Leon said we need a pressure release valve. And I think you're just saying the same thing, which I love. Again, you're saying, like, as you get to this point to where you're about to explode, take a fucking breath, man, and be present. Be there.
Yep.
Again, it's simple, but it's probably the hardest thing that you're going to do any day of your life.
What fun practice. What else are you doing? Come on. Let's do some worthy practice in life.
Oh, yeah. I would certainly call that worthy.
It is universally beneficial to learn and to practice skills with sexuality, with yourself or with a partner. Mm-hmm. It will benefit all aspects of your life to be a stronger, more in tuned, more aware sexual being.
Something I'm curious about, Aaron. You have done this to yourself. You've experienced
and my wife.
Yeah. So, but this is something that you've learned to do, right? Be more inside it, be more present and everything during while you have sex with your wife.
Yeah.
Is this something that you've also helped your wife do? Like, is your wife feeling the same thing as you, or is she?
Yeah. Yep. I don't think my wife would want to have sex with me as much if she wasn't having these incredible experiences as well. Mm-hmm. Luckily, we have been very close and very open with each other and very trusting and honest, so that we've been able to be vulnerable in increasing amounts. So she's always been a very sexual being, and I don't know how she did it or how long it took her, or even if she has actually, but it seems to me that she has conquered most of her internal shames, if not all of them. And she said, it's okay that I'm having sex, and it's okay that I like it. She also enjoys being told what to do. So one of my favorite things to do is give her a countdown, because I'm in charge, so you're going to orgasm when I tell you. And she's into that. A lot of people are into that. So we do that. Also, we do have spontaneous, well, I would call them spontaneous orgasms, where we build, and then there's nowhere else to go. Based on as present as I am during our sexual interactions, I would be very surprised if she weren't having similar experiences. I haven't seen her cry during sex in a while, but I've seen her, do the Bambi walks and stuff. So I know she's having a pretty good time.
So she almost, apart from you, came to the same conclusion about being present during the sex. And instead of like what Melissa was talking about earlier, where women tend to find themselves having like an outer body experience, she doesn't tend to do that. She knows how to bring herself back in.
And luckily, I was attractive enough to her, and I made her feel safe enough that she was able to be sexually activated by me immediately. We didn't have an awkward phase. It's just been consistent building. As Chaz said, everything we do is additive. You can't take something away from a situation. You can only add to it. So I just kept giving her peace and happiness, so she kept relaxing, kept being more vulnerable, kept being more open. And then when she realized this is what she needed in a partner, as we've talked about in personal conversations, my wife would masturbate and think about me. And that's when I realized, like, dude, I need to figure out how to make this work forever, because we've got something here.
Melissa, you got anything?
Got all sorts of things.
You just look like a proud mom, right now, like a proud friend.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about a lot of things. I want to go a little bit back to what we're talking about with Tim. Where do we go if we can't even, where do we even start? And like I said, I would start with learning to calm yourself first. And from that place, you'll find more answers for yourself. Like, oh, I need to do this and not this. I need to make sure this happens and not this. You're not going to find that clarity of your body and what's happening and what's going on without softening and slowing down enough to be with it.
Okay. I have to work on being able to calm myself so that I can start focusing on how to be more present in myself. And then I can kind of go from there. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I'll be seeing Mars.
Mm-hmm. You can get there. Yeah. So the recipe I would say for you is more parasympathetic activation. Just Google what parasympathetic activation techniques. My favorite is alternate nostril breathing because it's simple, it's easy, it's fast, it's effective. You can do it while you're driving. You can do it while you're on the phone with someone. Ideally, you want to be quiet and in a place with yourself and feeling your body and just slowing down. But we do parasympathetic activation, and then you start being more present with your body. So any kind of self-touch, sexual or non-sexual, any kind of self-touch and any kind of touch, again, sexual or non-sexual, you're going to be more present with it. You put your arm around your wife, you're going to feel your fingertips on her shoulder. You're going to feel what her hair feels like brushing your shoulder, your neck. You're going to be there more and feel it more. I like to think of myself like this is my last day, or I'm an alien and I just dropped into this body and I'm going, what is this thing? Like, how does this work? What are arms? And you're just dropping in and feeling things for the first time. I like to imagine these kind of things to help me be more present with sensation. And that builds. That's the power I'm talking about. You have more power and potential in you than you know, but you have to be able to be present with it.
Yeah. With my rollerblading,
Mhm.
and again, I'm a 30-year-old man. I did Kung Fu from like the time I was 13 onward, so I have a very deep connection with my body. And if you haven't been able to tell yet, I'm fairly cerebral. I think a lot. It's almost all I do, and I can't stop. Please help. Just kidding. I
Yeah.
found meditation. I could stop it with a lot of concerted effort. But one of the things that has really helped me, we talked about pornography earlier. We talked about how it can be weaponized, and that makes it bad karma, but inherently seeing two people be intimate is not bad karma. That's a totally normal thing. It's a natural part of life. My favorite icebreaker that I'm going to start incorporating is how many of your friends have seen you naked consensually? Because Melissa hosts nude dinner parties to get people comfortable in their bodies.
I do.
Would you like to talk about that for a second?
Sure. Yeah. It's a private event. It's not open to the public. I screen everybody who goes there. It is a non-sexual, completely sober event, and I cater it and I facilitate a group of people removing their clothing in front of other people, and then we proceed to have a nice dinner together. It's a beautiful experience. It has they've developed a very predictable trajectory in how it goes. There's all this tension and nervousness and fear and afraid of, I don't want people to see this or not see that, or what are they going to think of my whatever. And then when we're all naked, there's this really rewarding and just luscious calm in the whole, like everyone's just so relaxed. Like we're all naked. We're all vulnerable. We're all flawed. We're all beautiful. And then it's chill. And then it's a fun time having dinner. So
we did talk about that in your previous episode, so I'm not going to devote a ton of time to that subject. But one thing we went over yesterday was that it is incredibly important to not just freeball this, but you have to have the teacher, the teaching, and the community. So if you have the community and you're a sexually aware being who's not going to shame other people for their bodies or whatever, you still need someone to help guide you through the process. Otherwise, it can devolve into an orgy or any number of things, right?
there's some skill and some know-how to do something like this responsibly in our culture. I'm not going to tell people to not do it. Like, do whatever you want. Some people are like, oh, I want to hold a new dinner party. And I kind of cringe. Not that I'm the end all be all of leaders and facilitators or anything, but I do have skills in helping people stay safe and helping people not cross their own boundaries is one thing that I have some good skill with. Like, wait, do you want to do that? Are you ready to do that? Is this a decision for you, or are you doing it because you feel peer pressured, whatever? So yeah, hold your own new dinner party if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend it, you know? I do have training. And skill and know-how with bodies and nudity and vulnerability and all sorts of things. So I think that's what you're speaking to is.
I appreciate the word of caution, and I do think that that's what I was seeking.
Okay.
Yeah. So I should probably delete my group chat of nude dinner party at my place for Thanksgiving.
Just add Melissa. She's the educator, man.
Just bring me in.
You can FaceTime in with us, I guess.
I'm interested to hear about her rates, because once this thing takes off, we might have some more professional and private counseling sessions here, Melissa.
Well, I've had a couple people reach out from our last episode with you, Melissa. And first of all, one thing that the message that I've been receiving that I need to pass on to you is that a lot of people hear your message and they view you as an incredible person, an incredible woman, somebody who has a lot of intelligence, a lot of insight, a lot of wisdom. And the term that most people used, and you know, you can like it if you want, badass. So
Thanks. Appreciate that feedback.
And another thing that a couple people also told me is that the nude dinner party idea sounds absolutely fun. And I was like, I completely agree. I think that'd be a really fun time in a comfortable environment with the right people. By the right people, I mean the right teacher.
It's usually very split. It's usually someone will either say, like, that sounds like I could do that. That sounds interesting. Or people say, hell fucking no. What are you talking about? Don't say anymore. You know, people are either intrigued or just absolutely not. Would I ever get naked with my friends?
For me, it's going to come down to what food is being served. Because if
It's
it's
good
like
food.
turkey,
I'm a food snob.
turkey, I don't want turkey. You said you're a food snob.
I'm a food snob. It's good food. That's one of the reasons that it developed, is I wanted to feed people good, healthy food. So that's a major part of the whole experience.
Whenever we do an NSLP nude dinner, can it be Indian food? Because I love Indian food.
Go for some naan bread, man. I love naan bread.
I do want to end this in a pretty specific place, Melissa.
Okay.
I feel as though I have overcome what I perceived as a pornography addiction, because I was using pornography almost on a daily basis. And it took me a lot of effort and several years of trial and error, because I'm a layman. I'm not a sexual educator.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any pointers for somebody who's working at either reducing their pornography consumption or trying to use their imagination more?
There's a lot of help out there. There's programs, there's teachers, there's podcasts that focus just on helping people quit pornography. Like there are resources to help you with.
So I could have Googled it.
Totally. Yeah.
Dang it.
Or reach out to a sex educator and ask them for some resources. Surely there's books. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. A general idea when we're trying to make big changes like this is asking ourselves the deep questions of why are you doing, what is this giving to you? What is this providing you with? What is this feeding you with? This is like any chemical addiction, any food addiction. What is this doing for you? What are you getting out of it? And how is it harming you? And so like getting clear on these things is super helpful. I have a particular addiction, which I actually don't like to speak about what it is, not because I'm ashamed about it, but because I have other people's judgment as it's like, it's not really a problem or whatever. For me, it's a problem. I have an addiction. I have had to get clear on what I'm feeding myself with that addiction. What I'm feeding myself: comfort, love, distraction, all these things. That's important for me to know. So when I crave that thing, oh, okay, what do I need right now? Oh, I do need comfort. I do need touch. I do need to be held instead of going to this addiction. So what I'm saying is get clear on what this is about for you on deeper levels. And so when it comes up, you can ask yourself those deeper questions. Another aspect is to really not shame yourself when you relapse. It's so important. So when you go back to it, when you go back to the porn, the most productive thing to do at that point is to ask yourself, what's up? Like, what happened there? When I go back to my addiction and I go, what was going on? And I sit with myself, I realize, oh, wow, I'm super stressed about that thing. I'm super scared about that other thing. I'm super upset about this one thing. Like something's there that I didn't address. So I went to the addiction instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, people often use their porn stuff as a help for something else. They're trying to help themselves, and that's the way that they know how.
That makes sense, and that sounds like exactly what I was doing. And a huge part of why, if anyone asked me, I would say I've beaten it. I do watch pornography occasionally, but I don't hyperfixate on it. I no longer shame myself. I don't owe it rent. If anything, it's a footnote in my life. Yeah, sometimes I Google whatever, or I haven't had a release in a while, and I recognize that I need it, and I don't feel particularly inspired to be imaginative. I'm okay with hitting the drive-through. I'm okay with going to the site, clicking on the first video that interests me, checking the box, but I don't shame myself. I understand that I am a sexual being. I need to have a sexual release. And if I feel like hitting the drive-through, that's okay. As long as I have an overall healthy life, my wife isn't suffering, I'm not hurting anyone. So that's why I feel like I'm not addicted, quote unquote, to pornography anymore. Because I just go there when I choose to.
Some people can do that and some people can't. Some people, it's all or nothing. And that tempering of a little bit here and there doesn't work, and it has to be a nothing. So that's great that it works for you, and that might not work for everybody with any kind of problematic habit or addiction or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd be happier with none, but the fact that it happens every once in a while, I'm able to be compassionate enough towards myself to not
Perfect.
let that, again, take up a huge residency in my brain.
That sounds more accurate.
Yeah, what you focus on is what you get.
Mm-hmm. That sounds more accurate, that like it's not enough that you're not going to shame yourself. Ideally, none would be cool.
Yes.
So I would just ask you, like, next time you're in that place of knowing you're needing a release and you feel like, oh, I could just go watch a video. I'd sit with yourself and say, what video do I want to watch? And just make it up in your brain. Watch your own damn video. Direct your own thing. If that's what you want, if you want to go that route, I challenge you to just stay with yourself.
I think I'm pushing towards just being sexual with my wife so that it becomes kind of like a holy thing that we share.
Mm-hmm.
I might masturbate if we're away from each other for like weeks or months at a time, but I'm so stoked with my sex life now that I don't feel like I need that. But I know that some of us have other engagements, such as sleeping or recording another podcast, which will need that link for the show notes.
The sleeping link?
Yeah.
I will send that one.
But Melissa, thank you so much for joining us.
It's always great to talk to you guys. Thanks for being open and candid about your lives and being open to feedback. I'm here to talk about sexuality and help people have a healthier experience. So I'm into it. Thanks for giving me that place.
It's an incredible experience to have you back here, Melissa.
Thanks.
And thank all of you for joining us.
This has been Aaron.
And Tim with
Melissa.
A huge thank you to that bastard Highland Markle for the original music.
Send this episode to whoever popped into your head while listening.
Comment below with what you want to hear us talk about next week.
And tag somebody we should bring on the podcast.
All pertinent links can be found in the episode description.
Be good to yourselves and each other.
We love you.